American man. No one pay attention to what's in my head. I got a voice inside that needs to be fed. It's causing chaos everywhere I land. I got a fever. I got a fever.
All right, everybody. I totally apologize for the technical difficulties. We have Coach Tressel back. We got his Lima Charlie loud and clear. We're just going to kind of restart the conversation, so I'm sorry that we're going to retread some water, Coach.
That's all right. It's all
absolutely honored to have you on. We'll just kind of take it from the top. But before the interruptions, we were talking about the game, meaning throwing out both records. Just didn't mean anything before we got there. Michigan's going to play spoiler, especially they got some big time recruits that came in. Some good news on their end there, so they're going to come in with a little bit of swagger. But I'm pointing to the Indiana game where all three phases of the game finally came together as a full team for Ohio State. You saw their special teams finally come through. Their defensive front is the front we've been kind of looking for all year with JTT and Jack Swagger. So definitely happy to see those guys step up and play a big game. And I'll kind of take it from there, Coach. You've been part of this rivalry for so long. Would you say that's accurate, or would you say one team kind of comes in a little bit hotter than the other?
Well, I don't know if I would say that Michigan wants to come in as a spoiler, because this is just about this game. And, one thing that we've got to make sure that we understand is we're not thinking about the Big Ten championship game. We're not thinking about the playoffs. We're not thinking about the national championship. We're thinking about the most important game of the season. They're going to play 14 points better than they are. And so we've got to play 17 points better than we are. And we just got to stay focused on it. And, it's always the cleanest game. It's always the toughest game. It's always a game that is totally separate from the rest of the year. And, it'll be an exciting one. And they've got, some really good players. They're probably not top to bottom as deep as we are in experience, although we're in game 12. So some of these guys now are, some of the freshmen are sophomores, some of the sophomores are juniors, and so, they're not going to be the team maybe we saw in the first half of the season. But really it comes down to, in a game like margin, who's going to win the rush. Who's going to score touchdowns in the red zone. You can be sure both teams will be trajectory of our team. It was and it takes in this back half of this, September is for really grow a little bit more sync. It was against it, but they're a good team. Performance, 15 years or something, I understand, as far as number of total. All that out because both teams are going to come and get after it, and who's going to make the least mistakes and who's going to be the toughest.
Toughness is going to be what this game comes down to, and this game has kind of defined the Big Ten Conference for a long time, rightfully so. It doesn't have any other, no nicknames, no gimmicks, no trophies. It's just pure old-fashioned hate. Don't even say the name of the opposite school. Before, we were kind of also mentioning just the emotion that everybody brings in. As a coach, what was a strategy that you brought into the locker room? How did you keep this from overrunning the emotions? How did you get your guys going and playing at the high level that you knew they needed to in order to handle the business that they were setting out to do?
Well, we always talked about the fact that poise and patience was going to be critical in a game like this. It's easy to get all wired up and fired up, and then you don't do your technique, the way you're capable. You're not in control of your emotions and your focus and so forth. So what we talked about constantly was we spent every day since January getting ready to be at our best on this day. And that's what we had to concentrate and do. We couldn't come unglued. We couldn't sit around wondering, are we going to win the game? You get on your tiptoes and start peeking to see how the end of the game. Your head play. What do you learn from each play? Quit. The biggest measuring stick because it was the last regular season game. And of course, the postseason has changed over the years. When we were there were only 2 teams that could get to the championship. Then there were the postseason after that. And you'll have time, whether it's a week to get ready for a Big Ten championship or like we had 40 days to get ready for a national championship. You worry about that later. But you got to find out, are we going to be at our best on the last day of the regular season? And, oh, by the way, it happens to be the rivalry game.
Exactly. With this game specifically, Will Howard has kind of been a talking point throughout much of the season. Obviously, the tough one loss on the schedule, best loss in the country to Oregon at this point, on the road. So there was all of that going into it, and it was final play of the game, tough situation, ends up sliding down. Since that moment and kind of last week putting a stamp on things, it played one of his better games. What have you seen out of Will Howard, and what do you think is he going to be possibly one of the X factors for this offense of being able to go out there and make sure that they keep this season on the trajectory that they want?
Oh, I think there's no question. I think Coach Day said at the minute that he came to the program is that he brought a maturity and a toughness that was special. And you can just see that. He's a no nonsense. I don't want to hear all the stuff. This is personal. This is sensitive. I'm not losing. That's just, you can just tell the way he plays the game. And, his statistics are great. That's irrelevant right now because what the statistics are in this game is what's important. And then down the road. But, I think I was on a radio show earlier today and we were talking about the fact that his performance this year reminds you a little bit of Craig Krenzel's performance in 2002.
Yes.
He just wasn't going to lose, and he wasn't going to let the people around him lose. And his toughness and his, he didn't look necessarily always as smooth as silk, but when the game ended, his team won, and that's the responsibility of the quarterback.
Absolutely. And your experience on that, especially your championship year under Krenzel, we have Coach Fresh here that is from the Alter program, and that's where your center came from.
Yep.
What we want to reflect a little bit, just because I too am at the middle school level on the Alter program. How important was he moving forward? I don't want to take your question, Coach Fresh, but
no, I mean, Coach Tress, great to be on with you and see you.
Thank you.
Remember the days when you'd come to Alder and all whole school was a buzz. Coach Tress was in the house. But my son played with Nick in those early 2000 years, so I saw all of his junior and senior year games. And I was wondering if you could call back that far, that process of recruiting Nick, and then because it's pretty amazing. A true freshman can play center at that level and help you win a national championship. But what did he mean to the team that year, and then subsequently after that? What impact did he have on the Ohio State football program for you?
Well, Nick was so powerful and could play so low. I mean, think of the stretch of centers we had: LaCharles Bentley, Alex Stepanovich, Nick Mangold, who was after that? Mike Brewster, Corey Lindsley. I mean, those guys. I mean, but
I'll play it on Sundays. I'll play
Right.
it at such a high level.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
and what Nick brought was an amazing ability to have power at the point. And if you think about it, as you mentioned, Coach, there he is in the national championship game, going nose to nose with Vince Wilfork,
Right.
who may be one of the greatest nose tackles in the history of the game.
Right.
And here he was as a freshman. And if you remember that game, there was three of the key moments that were right over top of him. And then what he brought to us as he got older, he brought.
Remember that game, Coach?
There you go.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Then as the years went, he just became a great leader. And maybe what I liked best about him, and maybe you remember this about him in high school, is he wasn't afraid to have interaction with the coaches and talk about things from the player's vantage point, which is always so helpful because, so often you get a bunch of great kids around and they feel as if they can't tell you how they're feeling. They can't tell you what they're thinking. And Nick was always that guy that he was just matter of fact. Here's what's up. He was always playing at a high level. I would hope that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer with that NFL career he had, and always wonderful in the community. He's just. I mean, I suppose you could have an all-day debate about who was the greatest center in the history of Ohio State, or who's maybe the best center, best three centers in the history of college football. And in my mind, you'd have to have Nick Mangold in that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. And he almost kind of came out of nowhere. He was really not much on the recruiting scene, I don't think, as a sophomore, but then really put together a really good junior season. They had a nice tape, and then his senior year, he was unstoppable. He played both ways for us, right center and on the defensive line. And he got a couple rotations. He would sit out just to catch his breath. But we were up in Akron, and Stowe Walsh Jesuit. We were playing there, and he had just one of the best games I've ever seen both ways against some really good competition. And everybody kind of thought right then and there he was Ohio State bound, and of course the rest is history. And he's a great guy, and you're right. He was kind of mature for his age.
Right.
I mean, he was like you said, he was not afraid to approach coaches and say what he felt, and just a very mature but down to earth, but business kind of like kid. And obviously, when we heard that he was going to be starting as a center, we were like, "Holy mackerel!" He was just playing high school football, right.
Well, I was worried about losing him to Notre Dame because Notre Dame was recruiting him hard.
Yes.
So we were blessed to get him, and I just saw him about a year ago out in New York.
Right.
We were on an Ohio State alumni golf outing for scholarship dollars.
He's living his best life out there, Coach.
He is, and he's being Mr. Dad now, Mr. Husband, and he's taking orders, but he's a great one. He's a great one.
Great.
Okay. I can definitely relate to that. My oldest is 14 years old.
I'm sorry, Jordan. I got one quick question. This is specific to this week. Coach, I think Coach Day did a great job not keeping the kids from looking ahead, right? Because that Indiana game was big. He had to keep them focused, right? Because Michigan's the following week. I don't know if you ever had a really, really big game the week before you played Michigan. I don't recall it. I mean, like a top 5 ranked team, right? Like they just had. How did he do that? How did he keep them so focused and ready to play and not even think ahead to next week?
Well, I think sometimes your opponent helps you, and I think the opponent was chirping a little bit. Plus, and also, let's face it, we're human beings, and when we know there's no room for error, and there's no way that we could lose last week and be able to control our own destiny.
Yeah.
And so I think the combination of those things, but maybe the most important one, coaches, I think they're just getting better. I just think they're just getting a little bit better all the time, getting to know one another better, getting to understand what it's going to take, maturing as a team, and they're doing it at the right time.
Yeah. Can't wait. I'm excited.
There's still a very high talent level too, and that's what was kind of evident with those big explosive plays. You don't take advantage of a punt return that bounces and skips, and you don't return that first punt return for a long time without a lot of talent. Williams, obviously, a freshman phenom, but Ibuka has been out there making plays for the last few seasons. So this is still a very good team, and I think that was probably what was lost most in the shuffle, because everyone was talking about whether Indiana would be able to survive losing and should they be here with what they've done up until this point. Everybody was kind of forgetting up until Coach Day was on a few of the ESPN programs before the game. This is a good Indiana team, and we're pretty good too. There is still that, they still understand the talent level that they have, and there is still expectations within that building that I think some people might have, the pressure that is put on them outside of the building is probably nothing to what they feel inside, just with that locker room and what these guys want to do with this season that they have.
Oh, I think there's no question. I think there's a lot of guys that, feel that this was why they came to Ohio State. This was why they chose to stay, maybe and forego the NFL draft. This is why they worked hard to attract a couple of these guys to join them, because they felt very strong about their talent level, and there's no question. I don't know that there's a more talented team in the country. But the most talented team in the country won't win if it's not the best team. And I think what they've done is that they've grown together as a team. And sometimes a little adversity helps that. You never know, if that tough loss out in Oregon, if that, I guess you have to look at it as, hey, that's something that galvanizes you. Sometimes when the going gets tough, you circle the wagons, and, sometimes you'd rather lose one early than late. And but it'll be a fun one to watch because, we'll be wired up. They'll be wired up. After they hit each other once or twice, it'll settle into a football game. And then, the things that, that determine a football game will determine this one. But so often they're magnified.
I think that's a great thing about this last matchup too against Indiana. It was a very tough sledding initially. That was the team that was fired up, but they weathered the initial punch, just how I assume they're probably expecting to have to come in the same way this weekend. Weather that first initial storm and then allow your talent, your execution, and you're going to take advantage of some mistake because it's college football and you never know what 18 to 22-year-olds, I don't have to explain that to you. You know that better than anybody. Never know what these 18 to 22-year-olds are going to actually do on the field. You hope that they perform to the best of their ability, but if you can weather that initial emotional storm, especially in a game of this magnitude, that's going to be, they already have a very good example of doing that last weekend against the Hoosiers.
Yeah, and there's no doubt once that flurry happens at the beginning, the team that makes the least mistakes, and you've got to be the one that makes the least mistakes. And then I think the other thing you don't want to lose sight of, the team that makes the most plays. You're going to have to make those big plays, whether they're big interceptions or big punt returns or big catches or breaking tackles on a run. Whoever makes the big plays and eliminates those turnovers, the data shows that team, especially in a game like this, wins that game.
Jordan,
absolutely. No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And you look at just the games that you played in, the whiteouts against Penn State, coming down to the Mike Nugent kicks there at the end through your illustrious career, and even down to Miami when you won a championship. When on paper a lot of people said Miami had more talent. So you nailed you put the nail right on the head when you said that. Not always the most talented team wins. I'm not taking anything away from your 2002 championship, but just that the comparison, people, that they always go back and they're like, oh, they had Willis McGahee and they had, this player, like you said, Vince Wilfork, and, they had the big safety,
Sean
Ed
Taylor.
Reed and Sean Taylor, and that team was loaded from top to bottom on paper. But, Ohio State at the end of the day was a more disciplined team, especially in overtime, and, Krenzel got it done. So I love how you made that comparison that not only is the most talented team on paper, or in this day and age, the most talented team out of the NIL deals will win the game if they're not coached well, if they're not disciplined. So that
Well, right, and as long as you're capable, if you don't have capable players and the other talent, the team is just light years better, then you're probably going to have a hard time. But we always felt that we were always going to have capable talent at Ohio State, and some games maybe superior talent. But either way, we wanted to be the team that made the least mistakes, that played closer, that believed in one another, that cared about one another, and did all those things that don't take talent. And then we always knew we'd have enough talent if we did those things that didn't take talent. But that takes time to grow together and have that accountability to one another and that willingness to do those things and that discipline and so forth. So that's what's fun to me. The best part of playing in this game always was it was the final curtain call of a long year of training. I mean, you've been training, you know how athletes are. I mean, it's from the time you get back from the bowl game all the way to that day. And this is the last time the curtain opens, and we want to make sure our final act, is a good one. And then what happens after that? That's just bonus play. That's just bonus play. But you've already kind of gotten your habits made after that. And so it'll be fun to watch. And, the horseshoe will be wild and it's going to be a game both teams will remember. And quite honestly, they probably got more young players playing than we do. And it's going to be a eye opener for their young players, but their young players are going to grow, and they're going to, they didn't get recruited at a place like Michigan if they weren't good.
Right.
So it's going to be, it's going to be a great opportunity for both teams. And personally, I think we probably have a talent advantage. We probably have a trajectory advantage, but not so much that it's an impossibility that they can play with us if we don't play up to our potential. And that's the beauty of it, is if you play in this game and you play the best you can possibly play, you'll be fine. You'll walk with your head high as you leave that game.
I couldn't agree with you more, Coach. Both as coaching and as a player myself, just on a JUCO level, I never made it past that. But definitely were some games we got our tails kicked in. One of them we used to scrimmage the Navy team as the Marine Corps JUCO team would kind of do a little friendly scrimmage in the summertime, and we would get our teeth kicked in. But a couple of those times we had to hold our head high, but just giving it our all effort. So that was super fun. But I do want to ask the Golden Pants tradition. What does that mean to your players, and what does that mean to you as a coach? Almost exclusively, really owning that rivalry while you were head coach of the Buckeyes.
The Gold Pants are kind of internal symbol. And so that was one of those things that it was it's hard to carry around with you.
Yikes.
Coach, can you still hear us?
There he is.
Moving in and out.
Did you hear my answer on the?
We heard bits and pieces, Coach.
Yeah, it was parts.
Can you still are you still reading us loud and clear?
See if it's able to unfreeze now. Bring him back in. No? A little switcheroo, yeah. Anything better? Good thing there's a little bit of adversity. Couldn't be a perfect week going into this game.
You guys have never had this issue before, right?
No.
No.
This might be the end of my
Podcasting
career.
Well,
Coach, it's probably something on his end. I mean, could be anything really.
yeah. Not having the high-tech studios coming around. That's why people need to continue to support.
So I've been banging the door for sponsors for a while.
I guess I got a question for you two as we're trying to hopefully get Coach back, and I'll ask him too. But having never experienced the atmosphere live of what this game is going to be like, have either of you experienced it in person? And what is the emotion that you would associate with this rivalry? Obviously, it's such a big situation in that entire state.
Well, I've been around a lot longer than you guys. I'm a lot closer to Coach Tress's age than you are to me. But I've seen a lot of these games right over the years. I've been in person once. It's super intense. I mean, it's way louder, way more energetic. It doesn't matter what the weather is. I mean, you don't even have to have your eyes open to know you're at an Ohio State Michigan game. And so for me and my family, it's been like a national holiday, really, to the build up and the game on Saturday itself over the years. Used to be, I mean, I think it still is really, really big, but I feel like it was even really big back when Coach Hayes and Coach Schembechler, were having their 10-year war. If you guys haven't seen it, there's a DVD out called The 10-Year War. And in fact, I have it sitting right here on my desk. You have to get it and watch it because it does a really good job of kind of putting things in perspective from where it really started was with those two guys. And so it's grown and gotten bigger and better, but it's super, super, super intense for most people that are there.
I agree with Coach Fresh. I was obviously only being 35 on Thursday, was really under the Jim Trussell era. So it's always a holiday in my family because you always have Thanksgiving and then it's the game. You almost get together and you reheat the leftovers and it's Thanksgiving plus the Ohio State Michigan game. So it's definitely always a holiday in my family. The calendar's circled 98% of the time. I mean, minus a few times, when I was in the Marine Corps, I couldn't always make it home, but I did some FaceTime and some live time, and even overseas, I'll tell you what, about 35%, a lot of people don't know this, about 35% of the Marine Corps recruiting comes out of the state of Ohio. It's one of the biggest states
Wow.
for the recruitment. So when that game comes around, whether I was stateside, the NCO club would be packed to the guild from about when they would open up at 10:30 on purpose. All the Ohio Marines would be packed in. Maybe like 3 Michigan Marines would try to come in, but they weren't really welcome. So they were vastly outnumbered. It was ridiculous. Even when I was in Afghanistan, our big tents, and I was artillery unit. Our artillery unit had the Ohio State flags waving so high, and throughout the game, they would come on what was called the spider box. It was a little radio about this big, green. The Marine Corps gets 1 cent out of every dollar that the Navy gets, so our technology is behind. But it was a Vietnam era little spider box that was hooked up to a place called CDC, and they would come down and they would tell us the score periodically, and like, okay, first down Ohio State, and then you wait for the hooks to come back on, and you'd be wearing something about this big on your ears, and you'd hear the score like periodically come through. So, Coach Tressel, it's good to have you back. We see your feeds.
Yep.
Feeds good, but hopefully you're able to hear a little bit what we were saying.
Yeah, that's a good question for Coach Tress, I think, is growing up where he grew up and having a father that coached. How big was the Ohio State-Michigan game in your household back then, Coach?
Well, it was huge because my father was the Division III coach, and that was before the playoffs and all that. So his season always ended the week before the Ohio State-Michigan game. So it was like the first weekend we got to see him, because you know how coaches are. I mean, they're gone.
Right.
And so that was kind of our tradition, is that, and remember back when I was growing up, a college team could only be on TV 5 times every 2 years. TV was regulated, and so that game was always on TV.
Right.
And so that was the one that you waited for all year long, and I think that too added to the excitement of it, because it was the first time you could really watch it live. We would watch the Woody Hayes show late at night, replay on Saturday nights. They'd show highlights or whatever, but you never got to see the games like you do today, except for that one.
Right.
And and it always was for the Big Ten championship. It seemed like
it absolutely did seem like it, and it was always at noon. I mean, it's always been at noon as far as I can remember. One or two exceptions. What are your thoughts on that about taking it off noon and playing it maybe a little bit later in the afternoon or even at night?
You know what? As a coach, I always like to get up and go play. I hated to sit around. And especially for that game, we played it at 3:30 in 2006.
Right.
Was number 1 against number 2, and it seemed like it was we had to wait all day, and so I would just as soon get up and play. And if that means the people in California got to get up at 9 o'clock and watch, I don't care, because we want to get on the field. But
I agree.
It's just a special game with 2 great schools. And, we always say that Ohio State wouldn't be Ohio State without Michigan, and Michigan wouldn't be Michigan without Ohio State, because that game has created, the aura of those 2 teams in the last, 50, 60 years. And that's why, you have great respect for them, and you play harder against them than you do against anyone else, because they're good. And you appreciate your rival, and it doesn't mean you like them. I didn't say you liked them, but you appreciate them.
Right. I think it's crazy, personally, Penn State aside, that the Ohio State and Michigan have continued to dominate the Big Ten. Now, I know there's the new format with the new teams and all that, but if you think back to the original Big Ten, and you could, I guess, include Penn State in that conversation, it's amazing to me how much Ohio State and Michigan have continued to absolutely dominate that league year in, year out.
And I think, Woody and Bo kind of kicked that off. And because prior to that, back in the 50s and early 60s, there were a lot of different champions every year.
That's right.
Then Ohio State and Michigan started getting the bigger share of it. And now you add, the 4 West Coast teams. And I think when you added Penn State, you added an outstanding team, but
they can't win it still, right? I mean, they can't win the Big Ten championship, right?
Well, the season's not over.
Okay, fair point.
And so up to this point, no, they haven't. I think they might have won it back in I don't know, 90 something, I think maybe. Maybe not. Maybe they've never won it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But I know one thing. They're always a good team.
They are.
They
are. There's no doubt about it. And while we're on it, just real quickly, we lose him?
It looks like he's frozen again.
There he is. Can you hear us, Coach?
I got you back.
Yeah. Yep. While we're on the subject, I would like to hear your thoughts on the realignment and what you think about the Big Ten evolving into what it is now and whatever it becomes sooner or later. Are we at a point now where we're really going to kind of jump off the deep end with all that stuff sooner or later here? What are your thoughts on all of that?
My guess is
okay.
Reshuffling. The next major reshuffling might be one that lasts quite a while, because I'd like to think we're going to get our arms around it. We're going to get, I hope, some guardrails and all this, portal stuff and NIL stuff. And because if it keeps going the way it is, I'm not sure who it's good for, but so I'm hoping it's just a temporary fix right now, and it'll take shape.
Well, I'm sorry. One more. I'll shut up after this. Coach, could you coach today with the NIL and the portal and everything that's going on in terms of all of the changes? You've seen what's happened both in basketball and in football, even with some of the more seasoned, veteran coaches who have decided to kind of just step back. Could you do it?
I think it would be harder, but like anything else, when the rules of engagement change, you adopt, and adjust to the rules of engagement. And you might not like it, but if you want to keep coaching the game you love, you're going to have to put up with it. And I do think that you'll see shorter careers because I think the coaches will be like, I don't know.
Ooh, bingo.
See how I'm watching for him.
Borderline sabotaged.
I blame Russia.
I blame something.
Somebody's outside pinching the Wi-Fi cord.
I don't know, but I to kind of piggyback off that, I'd like to at least see and I've heard a lot of conversation about this, a salary cap come on to the NIL, because I think the bigger schools and stuff like that, you can't have it be like the MLB, especially when it's donors.
That's coming, Jordan. There's a legal case right now that's pretty much towards the end of the litigation process that's going to help solve that problem. And basically, they're going to tell, I don't know the formula for that is, but they're basically going to tell the athletes that their value is what their market value is. And so if you're the number one quarterback, your market value is going to be XYZ. But if you're the backup, long snapper, your value isn't going to be the same as the quarterback. And they're going to have a formula for how they decide what your value to the team is from an NIL perspective. And that's coming. I can send you the links. There's a couple cases out there, NCAA cases they're getting ready to solve. One of them is NIL, whether they're going to back pay kids back to 2016, and one for going forward, how they're going to figure out to pay NIL going forward, and it's all going to be based on market value of the particular player and what they mean to the team and the area that they live in and how they can be marketed and that kind of thing. Talking about NIL, Coach, and the changes that are coming with the NCAA litigation, that's kind of close to being resolved here pretty soon, and how they're going to back pay guys. I think back to 2016, they're going to have a formula for figuring out how to back pay guys from the past, but also they're going to have a formula for how they're going to kind of level the playing field for NIL going forward. And to your point, applying a little bit of sanity to all of this and having some guardrails, because right now where we're headed is off the deep end. But I think that's coming, don't you, Coach?
Well, they're taking the step that they haven't taken yet, which is revenue sharing.
Correct. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
So the revenue sharing is going to happen,
Right.
but I don't know what that has to do with NIL, because
That's a separate thing. You're right. That's a separate thing.
NIL is still by law right now.
Correct.
You cannot keep someone from, it's just like you look at the NFL, they have a salary cap, but then you see Mahomes on every commercial and Kelsey on every commercial. And
that's right.
And that's the way college will be, I guess.
I agree.
Unless there's some sort of guardrails put on that, but I just don't know legally how you can stop someone from being able to market themselves.
Can't.
So, I mean, it's just it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, just for instance, the reason you don't see every NFL player on commercials is because the market will only bear so much.
That's right.
And so the question will be, when will the college market, get some donor fatigue and those kinds of things? Because, I mean, I guess someone could pretend they're State Farm and give kid a bunch of money, but their TV commercials won't be on TV, Right. So I don't know. We did it to ourselves for 50 years. We didn't allow the players to take advantage of any of the rapid growing revenue.
Yeah.
It's like anything else. When you don't do right, someday it catches up to you. And when it catches up to you, normally it's hard to deal with. And we're in the hard to deal with situation now. And so, I guess stay tuned. But while you're still coaching and while you're still having a program, here's the rules. And you better do the rules. You better do your engagement as well as everyone else.
We've seen how they've kind of changed their strategy with, I think that's why a big reason Chip Kelly is in Columbus now with Ryan Day, because Ryan Day was supposed to take a step back from day-to-day sideline operations and focus a little bit more on the team and roster building. It is going to be interesting. Do you see, obviously there's been a lot of parity and there's the new playoff format allows for more teams to still be involved. Do you see the NIL and the transfer portal? Is that the reason we're seeing the parity and the level of college football kind of even itself out with all of these teams that do have great seasons, Coach? Or is there some other reason that you're seeing as much back and forth slugfest and kind of upset games with this new situation?
I think the top tier is going to be the top tier because they're probably going to have the most money.
Right.
And unless they do a bad job picking who they pay, they're going to have better teams than the middle tier. Now, does that mean there won't be upsets? No. I think right now, honestly, the top two teams in the Big Ten, I think, are better than anyone in the country. But the next 4 teams, maybe 5 teams in the SEC are probably better than 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the Big Ten. And so they're beating each other. That doesn't mean that 2 Big Ten teams aren't, because I'm not so sure Ohio State and Oregon aren't the 2 best teams in the country. And so some of those 4th best team in the SEC is a lot closer to the 1st best team in the SEC than the 4th one is in the Big Ten.
Right.
And so, but I still think that, like in most things, when there's a little bit of anarchy going on or whatever, the rich will get richer. I mean, it's just, I think it's
there's any doubt about it.
It's a reality.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Hey, Coach, are you going to the game Saturday?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
It's going to be cold.
That's what I understand. We're used to that. That it's always cold.
How about some of those SEC teams having to come north potentially to play in some really cold weather in the playoffs? How about that? That's a little retribution, isn't it?
With the NFL.
Yeah.
But to kind of feedback off what you were saying, Mike, definitely some of those, West Coast teams joining the Big Ten, you know, coming out north, playing in Penn State in either a whiteout, 7:30 game or a Michigan game at 7:30.
I hope
it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, Jordan, I hope there's at least one South team that has to come north and it's like a blizzard or like 5 degrees or something like that. At least one, right?
I would love to see USC have to come up and play in a mid-September, October game. Kind of similar to how we played Taft last week when it was just raining ice. And
can you imagine Alabama, Georgia coming up here to play at Penn State or in Columbus in December? I mean, they've had the benefit of us having to go down there to play in these bowl games over the years, and now they're going to have to come up here finally.
Yeah, that's what I believe about the Pac-12 expansion into the Big Ten. To see a team like USC that's used to playing in the Coliseum, it's 75 degrees, 68 degrees cool at kickoff.
Yeah. Well, I had no problem with that when it was the Rose Bowl and it was a big, everybody's playing in the warm, thing, but it wasn't a national championship playoff tournament, right? It was just a game and a big game, but both teams got to play nice weather and all that. But now we're talking about teams that have to play for the national championship. I might have to travel and play in inclement situations. I think that's karma.
Oh yeah, definitely karma. Kind of reminiscent to what Coach Tressel just said. Things come back around. So all the times that we had to go down there and play a bowl game or be the premier, them being the premier team.
Yeah,
that the SEC was always kind of looked at as a bigger conference than the Big Ten for years, when especially more predominantly during the Tebow years, and when they kind of had that riot against Ohio State when we couldn't get over the hump before the Sugar Bowl game, that when Terrell Pryor beat Arkansas was kind of our big turnaround as a program. That was our big win against the SEC, in my opinion, before Terrell Pryor exited the program. That was a big thing in my mind for the Big Ten. That was kind of the turning point when it came to recruitment and speed. Everybody said you had to have the SEC speed. It looked like the Big Ten finally kind of caught up to that play, especially with players like Terrell Pryor that was running a subpar 4.3 at the time at the quarterback position that went to the NFL.
You kind of got to give Urban a little bit of credit for that, because he made that such a big priority and started recruiting outside of Ohio to bring in some of those, really fast to Not to say we didn't have him before, but he did put a big emphasis on that and did expand the recruiting horizons a little more to get those guys from Texas and Florida and California. So, but now, I mean, it's, it kind of recruits itself, right? You get those kids and you win, and of course you have enough money to pay them, then, you're going to just kind of perpetuate what you're doing and your success. So.
Oh yeah. And, I always kind of think about the championship game when Ted Ginn, he takes a kickoff for a touchdown and he hurts himself and he doesn't play the rest of the game. I know one player doesn't win you a game, but
no, that hurt.
It certainly changed the play calling, and it certainly, Florida had to play us a lot differently. They could play us up. They kind of went out of a zone. We didn't have that. We didn't have that guy on the outside that could actually pick them apart, attract the double team. And, I always gonna have dreams every now and then, like, what it's that Marvel what if moment, if he just doesn't pull that muscle at the end of that run, do we take the full momentum, and does it change the game? Does it change the outcome? We'll never know, but
Could have. He was a major weapon.
Oh,
Even if he doesn't get the ball, he's a major weapon, right? So it could have changed the outcome. You just have to hope when you're in those big games like that, if an injury pops up, it's on the other team and not you.
Right. But that just that just took so much, because we were at so high, and it
did
took so much of the wind out of your sail. I remember watching the TV, just absolutely gasped. Well,
it affects the team too for a little bit. I mean, they hopefully can overcome that in a series or two, but it definitely affects them and in multiple ways. But you're right, as a fan, you hated to see him go down like that. Obviously, one of the fastest guys we've ever had at Ohio State, and it was fun to watch him catch the ball and run back punts and kickoffs. So it was a big loss, no doubt about it.
Certainly. Hopefully we can.
Were you guys watching the game on Saturday? Watching it at home, George?
I'll be with the folks up in Dayton. My brother will be in town, so I'll be.
Okay, good.
I'll be rocking with mom and dad.
Good.
Yeah, I'll be checking it out. I got an uncle whose family they've been professors at Ohio State for a long time, so he's deep into the rivalry. He's a big Buckeye fan.
Like I said, write it down. Get the 10-year war video. You can probably watch it on YouTube. You can probably get it on YouTube and watch it on there.
Yeah.
It'll enlighten you in terms of how all of this has come to where it's at today. I think you really enjoy it. It's Woody and Bo, and they were great friends right to the very end. A lot of people don't know that, but you watch it. It's awesome. It's a story of the 10 years that they coached against each other, and they kind of look at and go over each and every game with some other little additional pieces in there to help articulate, kind of what was happening at the time. But you'll like it. I think you should check it out. The 10-year war. Check it out.
Oh, most certainly.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get Coach Tressel back on the program, and we can wrap it up here. Is he totally out?
Yeah,
he totally dropped out now. I had him backstage trying to get the connection back fixed, and he's not backstage anymore.
Hey guys, he and I are close to the same age. He's 71. I'm 68, almost 60. It's past our bedtime.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a joke.
I'm 2 hours behind you guys, so I still got a little bit of time.
Oh, okay. I stayed up last night and watched the end of the UD game, so I'm dragging a little bit right now. They're playing right now. I don't know what the score is, but I'd like to catch the end of that. So I think I'll drop off, guys, and if he gets back on, have at it. And this was fantastic, big thrill. I'll be tweeting a screenshot with me and Coach Tress on it here.
Yeah.
The hours up.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, Coach.
No, it was well worth it for me. Trust me, it was great. Good job lining him up, and I'm sure it'll be a while before you get him back on again because of this football season. Although you don't know, we could maybe if we go a couple more weeks here, you can probably get him on again. Just make sure we have the technical problems all resolved.
Yes, we'll resolve this big time.
All right, see you guys.
We'll see you later, Coach. Thank you. Jimmy, your second time with the program. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to our fans. I'm sorry to Coach Trussell that the technical difficulties continue. It's just, I got a text message from him. His battery hit low for his cell phone, and that is what interrupted his programming completely. We'll know shortly if he's going to come back on. But Jimmy, do you have any say? You and I, we've done this many times. We can bring it home here a little bit. We can kind of recap. I know you haven't got a really chance to speak in a little bit here, but go ahead. What do you have any save rounds or where you want to go with your thoughts here on the show?
I'm excited to see what happens this weekend. It's going to be fun. I would love to see a very stressful game. I'm not going to sit here and say, especially because Coach Tressel was just on, that if you know me, if you listen to my other show, you know my feelings on Ohio State. But I love the fact that this game is almost always close. There's always things that pop up and wild situations. I'll definitely be watching from the comfort of my living room. I think it might be snowing or it'll be cold here too. So maybe I'll open a window and try and get some of that stadium experience coming out from the eastern side of things there. But it's always, this game, now that Colorado, Nebraska doesn't get taken place on the same weekend, this is now the premier college football rivalry everywhere, I believe. I know that Alabama has their own thing, but everyone that you go through, every single situation, every college football fan knows this is the number one rivalry in all of the sport.
Oh, I kind of, when he was on a program, I consider this, nothing closer than the Army-Navy game, in my opinion, when it comes to the rivalry. And it's, that's why they call it the game.
Yeah.
No matter where you go, no matter where it's broadcasted, no matter what living room, whether you're on the West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, right here in the heart of it, it's called the game for a reason. And it's going to be called the game to the end of time because, like Coach Tressel said, you throw out the records, you throw out what happened before. You're not looking at what's going on after, the Big Ten championship game. It doesn't mean anything during this game. The national championship game, it doesn't mean anything to this game. And rightfully it shouldn't. You look at the war that it's been between the coaches and, the choice of words and the players, more predominantly in the modern era when they go back and forth with each other kind of on their social medias. It's even highlighted on a bigger level now than it ever has been. So you just look at the hatred. I wouldn't call it a hatred, but I would call it a soft hatred, when it comes to the players. Because you even see it in Desmond Howard's just so lopsided, calls when he gets on ESPN and they talk about the Buckeyes and he automatically, it doesn't matter if we win by 30 or they win by 40 or they win by 3 or they lose by 1. His time as a Michigan Wolverine has just ruined that. It's not it's never a fair call when you hear a former analyst come from one way or another, and rightfully so. I understand and I get it. I hate the Army team just as much as anybody right now. So although I was kind of hoping they would stomp Notre Dame a little bit, but that didn't happen. Weight limits finally caught up. Height and weight limits, they can only play so much at a collegiate level when it comes to military teams. So, but we'll definitely see what the Presidential Bowl carries. But back to the task at hand, I can just totally see, that it's the game for a reason. And this game, I think this game is going to be just so much more intensified because it carries so much weight. You say not look ahead, but it carries weight on the recruiting trail for the next 2 to 3 seasons on who wins this game. It carries weight for, regardless if they make the top 12 or not. If Ryan Day goes 0-4, Jimmy, I really have a hard time believing that any university president or any NIL dealer is going to keep him.
It would be more opportunities than anybody else gets in that situation. As good as they've been, and they've been in national championship games. This is the best team that they've had since the CJ Stroud year when they were in the playoff and were that field goal away from beating Georgia and going on to play TCU. But they lost that game. They lost this game that year. They have not – all of that success has not come with a win over the rival, the team up north, the team that you refuse to even – I've seen all the videos of the tape going up on all of the M's around the city of Columbus. This is a big deal because if you don't take the step this year, you won't take the step. It's hard for me to say that you'll take that step ever. And you got to be able to take care of business in this game.
Yes. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think we're just going to kind of jump to, I'm getting some text. I don't think Coach Trussell is not going to join us to end the program. So Jimmy, we're going to kind of jump to, we've been on over an hour. When you put them both together, we're at 53 minutes on this one by itself. Give me your final predictions. Give me your honest, raw final predictions. And I'll, as many times as I've been on as an analyst, I'll take my fan glasses off and I will give an honest, non-biased prediction as well.
I think what I was talking about, what Coach Tressel mentioned earlier too, with that initial emotional punch, I can see Michigan getting out to a little bit of a lead. I think maybe not as much as, it was only a 7-point lead against Indiana. Maybe it's 7. I could see it maybe being 10. But at some point, Michigan is going to make the opening. They're going to have an opening because that's all this team has done. They have given every single team a chance to take advantage of them. And I think that Ohio State, based off of the performances last weekend, I still like Indiana. I still think that they have something for them if the rematch does happen. But Ohio State is going to earn that rematch against Oregon. They're going to punch their ticket to the Big Ten championship. I've seen too much from this team. They're not mentally weak. They're ready for this moment. After they've weathered that initial 10-point storm, I can see it being a 13-point victory for Ohio State. I do think that they're going to win and win kind of comfortably.
I'm similar to you. I think I don't have a 10-point lead, but I think Michigan comes out and throws that old-fashioned fighters fight jab and kind of takes that 7-point lead. And once Ohio State, being at home this year is a big upside to where last year when they were on the comeback trail, they were still on the road in the big house, and the noise had a big effect. Getting the play calls in were a lot slower. These are the things they're not going to face this year at home. So I think once they weather that first right hook from Michigan, I think we're going to go down 7-0 early, and but Ohio State's going to get together and kind of do what they've done in the Ryan Day era, and it's just going to be an avalanche. It's going to be an avalanche of points. So I see, I see that 7-3 lead, Michigan kind of going into the first quarter early, and then Michigan pulls that first mistake, and then you see Ohio State capitalize on a short field. Then you see Ohio State capitalize on maybe a big pick 6 return or something like that, and then all of a sudden you blink and Ohio State's up 3 scores, where the game itself, much like many times in the Ryan Day era, the game itself never felt like we were on that cruise control. And that's what Ohio, and that's with my fan goggles and my analyst goggles. It always feels like even games we win by 20 plus points, I always kind of feel like, man, it feels like it was emotionally a lot closer than what you see the final box score. And I feel like that's kind of been that way during the Ryan Day era predominantly. I didn't feel like it was that way during the Tressel era. Tressel won a lot of close games. He had Mike Nugent, which was the best collegiate field goal kicker at the time. Mm-hmm. Come through big time in Penn State. I kind of alluded to that when he was on a program.
They had running games that could go against everyone. That's where I'm most worried about this Ohio State team, because as much as the offensive line stepped up last week, the offensive line has been an issue all season. And the running game in the big moments, the Penn State game, they didn't run for all that much. The Oregon game, they had a couple big pops, but they didn't get a consistent attack going. You don't get a consistent running game attack going, you're going to give these massive guys on the Michigan defensive line chances to rush the passer. So that's where I'm kind of worried. I want them to, if they're going to look the way that everybody's expecting them to look, they need to be able to run the ball consistently and handle that front from Michigan, like everybody else who's played Michigan so far this year has been able to do. Texas had a great game plan where they're just going outside, slowing them down, and then you pop a little bit up the middle. Right. It's going to be interesting to see how Chip Kelly goes about establishing a run game this weekend.
And I agree with you, but we also have one of the best, talented backfields, and
they've proven behind this offensive line that if they don't get going, if they don't get some help, it can be a tough day. Even with these, I do agree with you. Judkins and Trevion Henderson are more talented than a lot of running back rooms in the country, but they've struggled behind their 5 offensive linemen.
And it's been reshuffled and retooled, but I agree with you. But at the end of the day, I think our predictions are similar.
Yeah,
I think Ohio State plays that closely to the vest, no pun intended, to Coach Russell. But and they just kind of take off from there, and they get it done, and hopefully in 2 weeks, maybe you and I will get back on here, and maybe I'll extend, I'll beg, maybe Coach Russell to come talk about the Big Ten championship game. Maybe he'll join us again. We'll get these technical issues figured out, whether we got to jump on a different platform or we'll see what the future holds for this program. Again, I apologize to our viewers. We got up to 60 live viewers. Thank you to everybody that came in and supported us. This was a big week. This was a huge honor to have him on. So I apologize to him for the technical difficulties. You can't always point the compass and the finger where it came from. I feel embarrassed. I took over this program a couple weeks ago solo. So it's been a little bit of tough sledding. So you can put this one on me, folks. I totally apologize for the inconveniences. Thank you to Coach Fresh, coming on again. His family, I've had now 3 of his family members come on. They've all coached football with me over at Alter. I'm getting into the basketball program slowly, but huge shout out to them. But it's just I apologize for the technical difficulties. I apologize to you, Jimmy. This was supposed to be the show of our lives. I still feel like it was.
I still had a lot of fun, and that's, like I said, when he was coming on the first one, it's just a guy that's been there in so many different situations. You just learn from having him speak, and he's a guy that's willing to give everything that he's learned. That's how you know that he's a coach, because he was willing to just open up and go right away, and he had plenty to say. I know that if the phone didn't die, he would have kept going and would have kept trying to talk with us and everything like that. So I get the technical issues, and I've been there with our show before, but I think that's why people are going to be fine with this, because you're addressing it. You're not shying away from it. And I know people have faith in you and faith in the program that it's not going to happen again.
No, definitely. Lightning won't strike twice in that sense. We will navigate through this. We'll get through this. So I apologize again. Thank you for your kind words, Jimmy. You've always been there for me in my broadcasting career. You were there when it started, bouncing around many programs on BSN, especially talking to Gridiron and being the honor until somebody passes it of being the guest host on your show, Far End of the Bench. Everybody go check it out. They do such an excellent job, whether it's live, whether it's pre-taped. Him and his co-host. I don't want to. I always butcher his name.
Nico.
I say Nico. I've said Miko before live on air.
Well, Miko Ranton, it's fine. That's fine. He plays for the Avalanche. It's good.
I almost said it on their on their big 100+ anniversary show. I almost said Miko, but I caught myself. But I wanted to catch myself one more time here. But thank you to everybody that came. Jimmy, do you have any save rounds before we get off here tonight?
No, I just all the coaching talk. I want to give a shout out to my youth team. We finished up our season out in Oklahoma, ended up taking second in the tournament, played a really, really talented and physical Oklahoma all-star team that I give my boys credit, because they beat us up in the first round of the tournament. We ended up playing ourselves all the way back to the championship, and they could have wilted. They could have decided not to finish the game. They ended up scoring. We were down 30-0. We had the ball with 3 minutes left. And we said, you can either decide to score or you can end with a goose egg on the scoreboard. They decided to put one in the end zone, so they deserve a shout out. Learned a lot about themselves, I'm sure, this weekend, and that's what sports and coaching are all about. So wanted to give those boys a shout out. Shout out Bach State Bruins, 2nd place in the Sooner Classic for the 7th grade division.
Big shout out to those guys. Congratulations again. It's always harder, no matter what level of football you play on. We know the time that you put in. It starts, like Coach Russell said, the minute after the season ends, you're back in the weight room or you're back in a practice field in some capacity, or, on the lower levels, you're doing your calisthenics, you're doing other sports to get in shape for it.
Yep.
Wrestlers are learning how to square back up and get on their feet. It helps them as linemen and linebackers, immensely. Basketball players are getting their cardio in. A lot of the skill players go to basketball, getting in shape in off season, in springtime. A lot of them are track runners and throwers and disc throwers and all that good stuff. I had the pleasure of doing a little bit of both. So it's a never ending thing to be an athlete. You and I can both speak on that. You've achieved a collegiate level as well. So it's never ending. My oldest, I love you, Jordan. You should probably be in bed, but you're up watching. My biggest supporter, she's Jordan Jr. She's currently in high school, 4 sport athlete. It's never ending. It's crazy. Yeah. We'll get through it. But that's the journey we choose to put ourselves on. And Jimmy, I would have it no other way.
I don't have anything else I'd rather do. That's for sure.
That's 110% for sure. You always feel better. You're always, it's a competitive streak that athletes, it never goes away, whether you make it to the next level or not on anything. You just carry it through with you in life, whether it's in the job field and so on and so forth. And as coaches, Jimmy, that's all we can do is we hope that everything that we instill to our athletes, they take it to the next level wherever they go, whether it's in the classroom, in the boardroom, in the blue collar world, or in the sports world. We hope they take it with them and they just become the best that we can coach them to be. And that's where I'm going to end our program. My official, I think Ohio State wins 35-21. What do you have a final score?
I'll go 35. I say 23. There's going to be more field goals Michigan scores than touchdowns. I think they might be maybe get in the end zone a couple times, and then there's a few more field goals after they get close. But Ohio State's defense stays stingy. So 35-23.
Well, there you have it, folks. Jimmy and I will be back, and we'll see whose prediction holds up. And we'll be going back and forth on his platform on Twitter, X, whatever you call it. I'm sure we'll both be super active on Saturday, even though that his kickoff is going to be around 9:30. My kickoff is going to be around 12. But
my games always kick off at 10, though. I love it. I love being Mountain Time. I was just in Central Time Zone, and I hate the actual noon kickoff. I'd rather it start off in the morning. I need to get a breakfast game in. That's what I need.
See, I'm not a big fan of the noon kickoffs. I understand, as Coach Russell said, when you're in those situations, you just want to get going. I couldn't imagine waiting all day. We as fans enjoy the 7:30 or later night kickoffs. It'd be around 4:30, 5 o'clock for you guys when it kicks off Eastern time here. But waiting that long, that would be kind of a bitch. That kind of, we're going to use language that is off the program right now. But that would be 110% kind of a bitch, because you think about in your school days, like you go through school, you go through all your stuff, you get up school at 2:30, then you got to wait, and you got to, you got to wait, you got to change clothes, you got your pregame meal, then you got to go, change, put your pads on again. If it's a away game, you got to get on the bus for 45 minutes because, the bus is the slowest trip of your life. We had the iPod Shuffle, which is about this big back then. We didn't have our cell phones couldn't carry us. I still had a flip phone from Nokia back in the day, back when T-Mobile was strictly prepaid. And you couldn't call me after 9 o'clock. You couldn't call me before 8 o'clock because it cost me too much money. I would smack you if you took my text messages at 25 cents away. But, those were the days. But yeah, that build up that there were games when I was a freshman and sophomore, I'd be exhausted. My sophomore year, I got on special teams. You get to the game because you're just so you're kind of mentally drained. I would kind of put it to combat. You wait. You never know when it's going to happen, and then, bam! When it happens, you get that little adrenaline rush. But you're kind of exhausted in those first few minutes. I think that's why you look at teams that start slow. I wonder if that's such a factor in their mentality.
Being able to bounce back is a huge thing. Huge thing for that.
I couldn't agree more. So we'll see. 12 o'clock kickoff. Thank you to Jim Trussell, Coach Trussell. Thank you. If you're still listening in any capacity, I am eternally grateful. I would never thought growing up that I would even get to share any screen time or even the room with you in general. You were always an icon in our household and the area that I grew up in. So thank you for your time to answer an email from a Midwestern guy like me that's just a guy on the internet and coaches a little bit of football on the side. I couldn't be more grateful. Thank you, sir, for coming on. Thank you, Jimmy, for coming on. Thank you, Coach Fresh, for coming on. If you have anything you want to say before we get out of here, we'll bounce.
No, I'm good. And enjoy the weekend. Everybody enjoy the game. Don't get too crazy. It's just a football game.
Yes. Everybody enjoy the game. Have a great Thanksgiving from my family to yours.
Happy Thanksgiving.
This has been Jordan with Ohio Sports Talk. If I survive this, I will see you again. The sun will rise again. This is Jimmy with Far End of the Bench. Check them out. They run a great program. Thank you for everybody coming on. We will see you later, and good night.